Yes, I see them. Thanks, Jeff.
Perfect. First of all, take advantage of that. I was going to actually go to the site and show you the 3 things that Dan already attached to this slide to this meeting. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, team. This is great information. One of the key things to think about is that for every cumulative update, and hopefully you've been seeing this, is we do a cumulative update roughly twice a year in the June timeframe and in the December timeframe. So we're here on CU6, which just happened here back in June, and we'll be doing another cumulative release that'll end here at the end of the December timeframe. So that's kind of the cadence that we've been doing here since 2018 has come out. And one of the things I draw your attention to is that there is a fact sheet for every release that we do for these cumulative updates. And the idea behind this is if you are on SL 2018 CU1 and you see a feature in CU, you look at CU2 and you go, that doesn't apply to what we do, but you see, CU4 or CU5 has features that you'd like to start taking advantage of. The way it's built is they can be installed right on top of each other. So as long as you're in SL 2018 CU1, you can jump up to 4 to 5 to 6 whenever you want to and continue that process. So know that there are fact sheets for all the different features, so you can kind of get an understanding of, hey, does this particular cumulative update make sense for my company, and do I want to go ahead and upgrade to it? System requirements, again, they haven't really changed so much. I think the last time we did it was about a year or so ago. We have some new releases of Microsoft things, but obviously as new versions of Office and in the future when new versions of Windows come out, you'll see those system requirements change as we have the time to test those out. So just to give you some of that stuff, and definitely take advantage of those handouts that are out there. That's great information for you. So what we're going to go through today is we'll briefly talk on the life cycle, which hopefully you're familiar with. We'll address them at the end. The first thing to note is, where are you in the life cycle? So if you are on SL 2011, literally today, and that's why this is highlighted in red, as of today, and I was going to wait because technically I guess today is when it will end, extended support for SL 2011 ends today. That means you'll go over to this support ended place where you will have no hot fixes, no year-end support. That's happened, but no support for SL 2011 going forward. So if you're in SL 2011, this is definitely a reason to bump up to 2018 because you no longer will get any support. You can't call into or email into the support line. You will not get any. For our 2015 people, you are now in extended support. You're not in mainstream support anymore. That changed, and you can stay on this, but you're extended through 2025. But that means no hot fixes. That means no year-end updates. So if you're a payables person or you're a payroll person, that's big to you because those year-end updates are needed. And if you don't get them automatically through Microsoft anymore, that means if you're in those versions, you do need to find someone who's going to pay for that. Now, there are solutions out there, but you do need to pay money to get those. And then obviously 2018, you can see where we're at right now. So let's go and talk about what's available. We'll go to it kind of in order of releases. And the thing I want you to kind of take in, and hopefully as you're watching and seeing these things, is this is really about the community of Dynamics SL and what they need to make them do better and work better and continuing to improve on it. So you're going to hear a lot of features where it starts one place, and then you might hear me slides later say, oh, and then we enhance it because we heard people say this, or we got feedback and we changed it. So why I'm saying that to you, because I want you to reach out to Dan after this presentation and say, Dan, great, love it. I would also like to add XYZ. I think it would be great if they changed this to do something slightly different. This would really help us out. That's the type of things that we're looking for because we have lists and backlogs of features that people have been putting into our system for years. But I'm more interested about what's the now. What are the things that are going to impact your company today, and make sure that we're adding those features that are going to continue to keep you successful in the SL world. So just keep that in mind as we go through. That's the theme as we continue to enhance based on your feedback. So please provide that feedback to Dan to get to me about those features. So one of the first questions is, how do I know I'm in SL 2018? This is just a quick visual guide. You'll know you're in it because of the blue icons and the blue Dynamics logo or white on blue logo that you have in the top corner. The first item that was added is approvals, and you'll see approvals are touched on 3 different times during this presentations. The official way was initially is that we were going to add it to the voucher adjustment entry. And the impetus came from is that if Jeff is my data entry person and Dan is my boss, Dan wants to be able to segregate to say, Jeff, do all your data entry, but I as Dan, I want to be able to review those items before we put them through. I want to cut down, and the idea here is that if Dan can find those errors, maybe I've coded things to the wrong place, that he can do it and he can either make the change or send it back to me as a learning experience for me to go, oh, okay, yeah, I need to pay more attention to that and make that change. So basically what will happen is if I try to do something and I turn on approvals, again, this isn't only if you turn it on. If it's turned on and I try to release it, I will get an error. Can't do it. You need to go ahead and submit it for approval. As I submit it for approval, it then click on the finish. It then goes into a new status called W, which means it is waiting. It's waiting for approval, it's waiting for rejection, it's waiting to be looked at. That means that that's the new status that we have of W. Now, what can I do with it? Well, there's 3 different ways you can approve. The first way, if you are already in SL, you can come right into the voucher adjustment entry screen. You'll see it will know that you are an approver, bring it up, bring it into a stage where it's enabled, and I can either choose to approve or reject individual documents, or I can do it at a header, just say I'm just going to approve everything. Now the big thing here is that note that you have the ability to make a change as an approver. So if I know that this project is the wrong project or this is the wrong sub account, you could make that change on the screen because you are an approver, or you could choose to say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and reject it and have Jeff make those changes. I can put in a reason why I've rejected or automatically let it approve for me. Now, once it is approved, Jeff can open it up again, I can open it up again, and now everything looks normal. Oh, there we go, I can release now, release later, take no action. All those things are available to me. So that's the one way that we can do it. Now, there are 2 other ways that you can actually do it out of the box, and this next 2 ways do not require you actually to be in Dynamics SL. So the first one is email. So we actually have automated emails that can get sent to you. And they go ahead and they load in the pertinent information about what's going on there. Here's the batch. Here's the total of that batch. Here are the vendors that are involved, the totals for each vendor. Now, it does provide you a link if you are on a machine that is connected to Dynamics SL. You can click that link and it will automatically open SL and let you look at it. But the real idea behind it is that this is customizable. So if this gives me enough to go, yeah, this is fine, 50 bucks for them, 70 bucks, no problem. I can choose to approve or reject it right in the email. So I could hit approve, put my reason for approving, put my reason for rejecting. Let's say I did go ahead and said, you know what, this is good enough, let's go ahead and approve it. Now the nice thing about it is my email will permanently change. It no longer looks like it did before where it was asking me to approve or reject it. It now changes. In this case, it's been approved. Now to me, the big benefit here is if I see this thing out here and I go to open up again, go, ooh, did I approve or reject this? Well, I don't have to guess. It's already in here. It already says, you did approve it, you're done, you've done your job and move forward. So there's also an app that goes along with this. The solution that we're using in the back end is something called Power Automate. And it is an email notification thing that we'll actually talk about a little bit later. But it has built-in abilities to do approvals for items, but also has the ability to do a lot more. But you can see there's an app for it, so I could have got an email automatically or gone into the app and take action to approve or reject items as well. The third way to do this is there's been an app or a Power App created for this. Now we'll talk about Power Apps later on in the presentation, but the idea behind Power is that you can actually build an app. You don't need to know coding, you don't need to be a developer, but it's a very app that you can go ahead and run on your tablet, run on your phone, and allow you to do simple tasks. In this particular case, this initially was going to be a way for you to view, hey, what's going on with my batches? I've turned on this approval. Have any been approved? Any been rejected, been posted, unposted? And the idea behind this was to be able to be outside of SL and quickly look at the status and see which ones are out there. Now we're looking at all of them right now, and you can see it started off as just a query tool and a way to view it, but then it became, well, if I can let them see it, why can't I let them just go ahead and take action on it as well? So that's what we did. You can actually choose to approve or reject a batch right in the system. And what it's going to show you here is I can click on that actual item, drill into the details, see where it's at, see exactly what's going on. Now this is a very simple batch. It's one batch with one document, which is probably not normal for you, but we would have multiple documents lifted out if possible, and we could see for each item, what does it need? It needs 2 people to approve it. What has it received so far? Nothing. So we can quickly see what's going on there. We can look at other items out there and quick jump to another batch and see this one's a little bit further along in the process. And we see that it's been approved by approver 1, but now it still needs approver 2. So again, still giving you that information, but allowing you to view the details that go along with it as well. Now the whole goal behind it is, again, in the end, this can also be used as a tool to approve it. So we can go into the screen, we can approve it through an email, or we can go right into this new screen and choose to approve it right inside of this new app. So 3 different ways to do it. The way to set it up, there is a brand new screen called Approval Maintenance located inside of SL, and you choose to turn it on or off. You might say, Jeff, we don't need that. That's too much. No problem, leave it off. Or you can go ahead and say, you know what, it would be really nice if Dan could have looked at everything before Jeff is done. So we could put approvers in here, turn it on for this screen. And we can choose that it's for all companies. So Dan's the approver for everything, or you can make it specific. Or you can say whether it's a group that approves it. And the idea behind a group is that first come, first serve. So whoever gets to it first in that group can approve it, or a specific user. So you have a lot of flexibility to be able to set up around the approving. Now the next thing was kind of going back to some SL 2011 items, speaking of 2011 going out of support, was the idea of our lookup list. In 2015, you probably became very aware that the lookup lists are much different now, and when you type in a value ON inside the name field, it's going to display any name that contains the value ON. Now what's new is this item in red. In the past, we defaulted to using a contains clause, but some people are very familiar with using the begins with clause that we've had forever in SL 2011 and earlier. The idea behind it is we find a way for people to on the fly be able to change those searches based on what's their familiarity. Hey, I'm an SL 2011 person. I like begins with. I've always used begins with. Let me have it. So we've added it back. And then people who wanted you to do contains, it still has that capability. You can switch on the fly. You don't have to close the screen or anything. It really just is a little radio button that you choose. Now, initially we set it up that you could say, what is the default behavior for a user? So when this web user 1 would log into SL, you could have the PVs default to either contains or begins with. And that was a great idea, but you're going to see a little bit later that people came back and said, like the idea of being able to set my default, but you know what, I'd like to be able to set it. And you'll see in several slides later, we've actually listened to the feedback and made some adjustments to this feature as well. Now the next one is around vendors. Vendor inactive. Customers, you can make them inactive forever, and vendors you have not. Now there was this kind of this hold status, which did a little bit of inactivity, but it was very, very light. And we didn't want to mess up the people who liked hold, so we decided to add inactive. Now, what's the idea with inactive? So Jeff is working with a vendor, something happens, and we want to stop all work with that vendor. So what this does is in the purchase order screen, you cannot make any new purchase orders for that vendor. You can't do any new voucher adjustment entries, and you can't cut checks for that vendor. So that's pretty serious, but it is a very good use in the sense that, hey, stop everything that we're doing this vendor right now. Well, what does this really do? Well, really what we're doing is we're removing it from your lookup list. Any inactive vendors will not show up on that list. And where does it impact? Oh, just a few screens. So there are obviously many, many different screens as this impacts. And so this is available to make a vendor inactive. Now, as an FYI, if I make the vendor inactive right now, and I want to make him active again, there is no penalty for doing so. It's just literally the click of a button, they're inactive, turn it off, they're active. So there's nothing we're not deleting anything, we're not getting rid of everything. We're just making it for the ability for you to stop working with that vendor at an instant and keep new items from being created. The next thing is an enhancement that we've had in the system for a very long time. So hopefully you're familiar with it. And I've got a look, now this is kind of a throwback picture now. This is the idea that inside of SL, I can display a web page. This is the old customer source, and hopefully you are aware that customer source is no longer available. There is a new replacement for it, and that new replacement is called Microsoft Docs. Whoops, I went too far. If I go to docs.microsoft.com, it's a whole new site which has SL content, topics, hot fixes, product releases, additional information. All my fact sheets that I create are out there, so forth. So there is a new place, just as an FYI, that's out there. But the idea is I could put that docs page as a default inside of SL, or I could make an internal intranet site from my accounting department or something specific to my company display inside of SL, because if there are things that are commonly gone to and I want to be able to look them up and I don't want to have to shut down, or not shut down, but minimize SL, I can do it all inside this browser, which is kind of neat. Now what we did is we added some functionality for our admins on the call, that if people say, hey, that homepage functionality looks pretty cool, we've added the capability for you to set up what their default home pages can be, and a new functionality that allows you to copy it from one person to multiple people if needed. You can set it to multiple users, multiple groups, one group, whatever you need to do, it has that capability. All right, so we are through SL 2018 and SL 2018 CU1. Let's jump into CU2. The first thing is for my project people. Now, what we've done is obviously we've worked with customers and partners and consultants over the years on Dynamics SL. And one of the things that I spoke to some consultants about are quick queries. I love quick queries because of their flexibility and the fact that you can kind of build your own and expand them and make them work for you the way that you want them to work. And so I spoke to a series of consultants about what are some of the common quick queries that you take with you when you start working with a customer. And the ones that I got a lot of feedback are around people who are working in the project world. So there is a quick query for allocation. The first three that you see here, the one is if you've set up your allocations in the system and you want to know, if I ran allocations today, what would be subject to be included in those allocations? That's the one query that's included. Well, that's a great idea. Let's make sure I set everything up right, run it, see what should be included, and if I see some things that are missing, that I maybe need to make an adjustment. The next two is after I run the allocation, well, what was allocated? And also I can do the allocated transaction with billings as well. So let me see what was allocated. The next is going to look at your billing transaction load analysis. Now, if you were going through the project transactions, what is eligible to be billed is basically what it's saying. Show me if I went through billing, what's going to be loaded. And also our financial transaction transfer analysis, again, let me know if I was getting ready to run FTT, what is eligible to be transferred. And it's a couple things that'll show you what will be going, but if it doesn't go, well, maybe you can take a look as to why. So a whole set new of project quick queries delivered from consultants that have used these a lot in workings with their project customers, now available in the core product for you. The next feature was a very simple ask. It initially started off to saying, hey, I just want to be able to see what period to post someone put a batch against. And if you thought out loud, you'd say, well, Jeff, that's simple. I can do a customization for that. And that's true. And that's what I kind of started off talking to the person, saying, hey, customization manager, add whatever field you want to it. And they said, oh, cool. So they went ahead and added it. And then they said, well, you know what? What would make it a lot better is if I could see my period to post, that I could actually edit the period to post and update it without having to open up every single batch. So that's exactly what we did. So what we've added here is we added the field, but if you are given the rights to do initialize mode, you can go into initialize mode, open up the screen, and then you can change the batch period to post without going back into the original SL screen and making those changes. So I can change it from here, move forward, select it to post. Now it's down to 2004. And if I open up that batch after processing, we will see that it went to 2004, not 2025. Very simple idea at first. Hey, I want to see more information on the screen. No problem. Evolved into, oh, well, now that I can see it, I see that this is a field that we're having issues with. Let's enable it. And that's exactly what we did. So those are the things that I'm looking for. What are those things that are going to make your lives easier? And this is a great example right here. Now jumping into my project people, this next feature is for those people who have to use who have to set up the project week maintenance screen. Now you might say, Jeff, what is this screen? Well, inside of SL, if you're going to do time against the project, you need to set up what your weeks are. Are they 1 week? Are they 2 weeks, bi-weekly, semi-monthly? Insert all the different ways you can set up a week for doing your time entry. This kind of came from me too, because when I'm doing demonstrations around web apps, I constantly have to set up the week maintenance screen. So I said, hey, let's add this whole section to the top of the screen in red. I want to be able to, instead of have to manually type in the week ending dates, labor period, time card period, fiscal period, instead of having to do that, I'd love it. I could just go into a screen, choose the first date, choose the last date, tell it what my time card period is, and then when I hit begin processing, what it will do is, oops, I guess I took that screenshot. Oh, there it goes. It goes ahead and it pops up in a preview screen and says, based on what you said on the other screen, this is what I think you want me to do. You want me to build these dates. Here are the dates. Here's the labor periods. Here's the time card periods. Here's the periods. And here's the salary factor. And then you can look at it and go, that looks great. Or the great thing about it, this is completely editable. So I can go in and change things, make adjustments. And then when I'm okay with it, I click on the OK button and it automatically adds this onto the end. Value add here is that I didn't have to type in those 3 lines. That's a simple example. Let's say I'm doing it for the year. That's many, that's at least 52 at times or more entries that could be in the system based on how I set it up. So now we're getting rid of this manual entry, allowing you to do it once, put it into the system instead of you having to type it in every time. So a huge, huge time saver there. Along my projects and tasks again, a simple request came in and said, hey, Jeff, there's a start and end date on the project maintenance screen. Did you know that it doesn't do anything? I said, yeah, it's never done anything. They said, well, I'd love it to do something, and here's what I'd like it to do. I would like to be able to say that if a project has gone past that end date, I want it to stop showing up on people's ability to enter their time. So let's say I set up a project for June, a project and task for June, or a project for a specific time frame. I can actually have it automatically turn off after a certain date, and I don't need to remember to jump into SL and make any changes. It just means it will no longer show up. So I can no longer put time against that project, or I can do it at a task level. So I could say there's a June task for this project, there's a July task, there's an August task, and I can literally have it shut off at the end of each month. So when we're doing time, we're only capturing things against that specific task. So it really enables it. Now you might say, well, I could kind of do that with inactive active. Totally could. But the nice thing about this is you can set this up once and done. You don't have to come back in here. You don't have to remember to run anything. It'll automatically take care of it for you. So where does this happen? Again, you set it up that you want to turn on in each project maintenance, you can turn on it. Some projects you might want to have it on. Some you say, Jeff, we don't need this. Perfectly fine. Where it's impacting the initially is in time card entry, project timesheet entry, travel and expense. It also works the same in web apps. So if you've got the latest versions of web apps with 2018, that will also work with them as well. The next is a service item. So we've been going back to our service friends, and you'll see another one that we've done later on here. This is a very simple request. Hey, Jeff, when I'm doing a quote, the default functionality in the service call entry screen, as soon as I choose a site, it wants me to lock into that site. So once you're doing work at that site, we don't want you to change it. But Jeff, I'm doing a quote, I'm not really sure where I'm going to do it. So it was very simple request. We've enabled it so that you can change your sites as long as you're in the handling of quote. Again, simple, makes sense. Now you can make those changes. Going on to CU3, mouse will catch up, there we go. Going back to the 18 and the function, we added the ability to now, you don't have to be an admin to set what your default your default value begins with or contains will be. No longer do you need to actually have someone do it. Now, just like you go in and turn on grid lines or cancel props and all those things, now you have the ability to say, hey, you know what? When I log into a screen, I want it to default to contains, default to begins with. Again, this doesn't lock you into always having to do that, but at least gives you ability to set a default value. The next one is going back to our approvals. The approvals were so popular and so needed. They said, hey, the next place I want you to do it is in the journal transaction screen. So now we have the ability to go into journal transactions, turn on the approval process. If I try to approve, it's going to tell me, you must submit it first. It allows me for Jeff to submit the batch, but then it allows for Dan to come in and do the approval process. Now, I'm not going to go through all the slides that we had before, but know that it is the same. You can approve the batch inside of the journal transaction screen. You can approve the batch through an email. You can approve the batch through a screen. So you have the same capabilities before, but now in journal transactions. So think if that's probably a place that you want to even be, just as much as payables, you want to make sure people are putting things that you're okay with. You want to go ahead and make sure that the lines that you do that are hitting your general ledger as soon as you release them, well, maybe want to take a look at them before those transactions go through. The next is building on what we did on previous releases. People came back and said, hey, the release GL batches screen, love what it did. How about accounts receivable? Said, sounds good. We added a period to post and initialize it. Same with accounts payable. Kind of goes hand now. AP batches can be changed just like that. And then building on the end date validation, they came back and said, we love the fact that you can turn off the dates, whether it's project level, task level, and it's going to help me with my time card entries and so forth. But can you also have it so it actually impacts AP, AR, and GL and removing those projects from the lookup list? We said that makes a lot of sense as well. So what it means, same thing as before. If it's at a project level, it'll turn off the in project. If it's at a task level, certain tasks will start to disappear. But where does this impact? So we basically took the three most popular screens on each of those modules: the journal transaction screen, the voucher adjustment entry screen, and the invoice and memo screens. When they get past those dates, if you turn those checkboxes on, those projects or those tasks will no longer start showing up past that date. So again, hopefully you're seeing the common theme here. We're building and building on top. For CU4, one of the things that came back to us and said, hey, application query and reversal screen. Maybe some of you use it, some of you don't. But the idea is to be able to reverse, whether it's a pay, prepayment, memo. Hey, I need to reverse done. So what would happen is that, let's say I did a payment or prepayment or one of those items, and it was, last month or 2 months ago, and I just noticed it now. If I go ahead and I do the reversal right now, it will do the reversing to the current date and the current period. And that's pretty much the way it's always been inside of SL, but someone quickly asked, hey, I'd like it so I can actually have it post back to the original date that it was done and to the original period that was posted. Now, not all of you are going to want this, so obviously it's an option. So there's a new checkbox, and if you check that box, it's going to post not only back to the original date, but the original period to post as well. So that's option. Hey, Jeff, we don't need that. No problem. Don't touch the checkbox. If needed, it is available there for people. So again, real simple request. We're not changing the way the product works. We're just enhancing it for people's needs. The next was around sales orders and purchase orders. So if you're familiar with this, the power of the sales order module, it's probably one of the most powerful modules that's out there that allows you to really set up your steps, set up how things should work, the population, the filling of the inventory, and so forth. It's very, very popular. But one of the functionality that's built into it is that if you are getting ready to do a sales order and you know that the items that you're going to be ordering are not available and you want to do a purchase order, there is an option for order to purchase. So it's saying, hey, let's purchase these items for me. So what it allows me to do is, you see here, if I do orders to purchase and I'm inside of the sales order, it will go ahead and I can click on the PO screen and it'll pop up and I can choose to auto create a PO or create a job ship or manually create a PO. But you can see it's created a link between the items on the sales order and the purchase order. And the idea behind it is that if someone goes into the purchase order and they want to go ahead and they decide to try to delete it, I think my screen pops up. If they try to delete it, then we want to let them know, hey, you can do that. You can delete it, but if you delete it, then it's going to break a connection that's been set up already between the sales order and the purchase order. So we've added the warning message, and basically the person said, hey, I know people can do it, and maybe people will continue to make that break, but let's at least stop them and give them a warning before they go forward. So it's going to go ahead, it's going to put up a warning message that you know that the sales order is associated to a PO, and if you move forward, you're going to break that connection. Are you sure you want to continue? So they can choose to say, oh yeah, well, okay, maybe I need to go ahead and remove those items off the purchase order and so forth. So it's going to go ahead and allow them to take stock in what they're doing, make a change, and then go forward. All right, the next is around service series, another thing. Met with a customer who was working on a completely different item. They said, hey, we also work in the service series. And one of the things that we run into is that if we do a service call and it's incorrect, reversing a service call is not the easiest thing to do. There's a lot of manual processing that needs to be done. And then, I just like to be able to basically add a button so I can reverse it. And when it's reversed and processed correctly, then I want to be able to pull that same item in again and make a new entry into the system. And that's exactly what we've done. My mouse go. So we have a button that allows you to reverse the invoice. Again, once you reverse it, you do need to process it to process the fact that it has been reversed. And then that same item would be available to you to say, now that you've reversed it appropriately and now the invoice has been basically wiped out, now there's a new copy button that says, hey, let's make a copy of what we did before. I'm going to make adjustments and move forward with it. So we've answered both the need to reverse and make it simple, and two, when I pull it up again, that I want to be able to make a copy of that old ones because it might be really close. There were just a few things that needed to be tweaked, and allow me to do so and move forward. So that's that functionality. The next is around notifications. I talked about earlier that there's email notifications when you're getting approvals for those new items that we've done for payables and for general ledger. We've also added some email notifications for other areas, and this is focused on our project area. So this is a nice one because it makes a lot of sense, is that, I don't know about you, but when it gets Friday, I'm ready to go. This is an email that you can automatically send at a certain time, whether it's on a Thursday or a Friday. Hey, by the way, don't forget, you need to send your time card in by 5 o'clock today or end of day, whatever your text happens to be. Or if it's Thursday and you haven't started your time card yet and you're at a company that everyone's supposed to put their time card in every day, you can send an email that say, hey, by the way, we noticed you haven't even started your time card yet. Maybe you want to get on that thing. The next one at the bottom is time card approved, and even nicer for those who are approvers, we'll let you know what's going on in your world. Obviously, I'm in trouble if this is Friday and all those time cards are missing, but we see some are missing, some could be complete, and some could be in process. So it gives me a quick way with those time cards. This is the functionality that we added through our BI dashboard. Hopefully you've heard me talk about these. These are great ways to look at the data inside of your Dynamics SL system at a more holistic view, because we're very used to transactional based information. This allows us to look at things. The project dashboard, that's been around, I think, since 2015, so hopefully you're familiar with that one. We did update some additional items in there to address some additional scenarios that people are coming to us with, so we made some updates there. But the two that we'll talk about now are a customer and a vendor dashboard. So the customer dashboard, I'm going to quickly go through just so you can hopefully see some things that will catch your eye. The idea behind here is to quickly show you graphically what are some things that are going on with your customers. So I can see who are my top 10 customers by balance, and this in the sense that, wow, they owe us a lot of money, so I can quickly see who they are, customer ID and the balances, and graphically see who's my biggest. I can also see the amount of receivable documents that are past due and the total amount that goes with that. So hopefully then see in the total amount of receivable documents and receivables amounts that we have out there. So we have a bit different ways to slice it. We can see the total documents by balance here. We go into the next one, top 10 customer by sales, not just by what's open, but how much sales have we done with the customers. Different than having an open document. And again, across the top, we have different ways of slicing the data. We can choose by specific company, classes, statements. I can choose one customer, all customers. I can even slice it by specific projects. So again, Even though it is just for customers, again, we can slice it different ways and set date ranges as well. I can look at like customer class balances by year, specific customer balances, document balances. You can see there's a combination of graphical and billing it to drill into the details to see what goes along with those as well. So lots of different reports. Again, these are free. As long as you're on SL2018, you download these and update, you're going to be able to connect these to your SL2018 system with no problem and start viewing and taking advantage of these. And as always, these are customizable. So if you find more you want to do to it, definitely reach out to SIS to find out, hey, what else can I do with these? Same, we've also added in Power BI dashboards for our vendors. You'll see very similar items. Here's some payables documents that are due, the number that are actually due today. So it gives me a quick way to view what's going on with my vendor items. All right, well, jumping to CU5, we're getting close to CU7. What happened in CU6, excuse me? Well, CU5 was really the time of year-end updates. So this was back in December, so a lot of the focus was on year-end updates. I'll talk about a few of them, but obviously that was where a lot of the time was spent. And to be honest with you, that's where we're spending a lot of time now as we're prepping for the December release. But there were a few items that were very simple that we added in. Inside of the payment application screen, you had the ability to do a sort by doc due date, reference number, doc type. Someone said, hey, I just want to be able to change by the doc date. Sometimes I need it descending, sometimes I need it ascending. So you'll see on the screen the ability to choose this new checkbox, doc date descending. You can see it populate appropriately, or doc date ascending, and it will show you the proper layout. So again, a simple add-on. Is there another screen where this would make a lot of sense to you? That's the kind of stuff that we love. The next was an ability to enhance the invoice printing process to be able to select exactly what we want to print out. So what we've added is there was a need for a billing project manager. They wanted to be able to decide what invoices print based on the billing project manager and based on an approver. Now you can choose one or the other or leave them blank. But whether you're preliminary or you're final, you now have the capability to include these fields to choose what to print. So simple addition, but some real powerful functionality there. As FYI, we also added some things around how these docs print out. Probably familiar with doc share and so forth, but we've added the ability to print to a specific directory. So let's say I have a bunch of reports and I just want to put them out into a PDF, into a folder. I can do that, whether that's to a directory, whether that's to a doc share site for a manager. So maybe the manager wants to review all those, we can do that. Doc share site for a project, you have all those capabilities built right into that screen. And that is brand new in 2018 as well. So around the things that we did around year-end updates, the big thing would have been, there's some payroll items here, but around the 1099 area is being able to put in support for new items like the new 1099 NEC form that came back. So we have support for that, as well as setting up what's going to be set up inside of your vendor maintenance screen. So that supports it. It also supports with the magnetic media, all the things that you need around that as well. Also, what happened around payroll for employee maintenance, the new drop-down options of head of household hire withholdings, married hire withholdings, single hire withholdings. You have all these options now available as well. And I think one more as my mouse slowly goes there. And also in the deduction maintenance screen as well. So I apologize, my mouse is not listening to my clicks. Okay, so now, finally, Jeff, after 40 minutes, you're finally getting to what is in CU6. So the first one in CU6 was around a current process that has been around, again, forever, and a simple request that came into it. Currently, right now, when you do a time card and you approve that time card, once you're done with it, you need to then go ahead and remember to run the Geo Label Posting process. The request came in and said, hey, listen, if every time I run time and review and approval process, I'm supposed to run the Geo Label process, could we just add a functionality to automatically run it for me? Very simple. Well, why don't we do that? So we added a feature called Geo Label Posting. You can turn it on, and so when you do the time and review approval and you run your begin processing to approve, it will then automatically run that process for you. Don't need to open it, don't need to think about running it, it will automatically do it. Okay, well that makes a lot of sense. If they go hand in hand and you have to do them both, why not make it automated so you don't have to think about doing those things? The next is another approval process. So we did the AP and deciding whether we should be able to let the AP entries be entered into it. Now we can do it to say, well, should we allow them to actually pay these checks? Because maybe there's something going on between the time that you entered it in and now the fact that there's a time for us to actually cut a check. So there's a new setup entry into the screen, same as we had in the other screens. It's called Edit Select Documents for Payments, and it does actually impact two different screens. So it looks slightly different. So in the payment selection screen, I can go ahead and choose my items. If I turn on these new features, fields populate on the screen where it's allowing me to take my handling of submitting for approval or approving and so forth. And this is just showing the result that these are the 3 new fields that I've added here. But if I put something into the screen, it's going to require me when I turn on approvals to actually have them approved before I can move forward. Otherwise, in the Edit Select Documents for Payments, you're going to see those same fields as well. But also, this is kind of the screen where we see the approver actually taking a look at those items in a little more detail. So what does that mean? If I go ahead and I submit a batch, maybe this is enough on the screen for them, but we've added to the bottom of the screen this check preview. And basically what it is pulling from is your check preview report, where you can choose the format you like and hit print preview. And what that's going to do is show you on the screen a review of the items that would be reviewed, that would be processed, and the checks that would be involved in this process. So it gives you a quick way to look at it. Now, because you are an approver, this one, as you can see, is already approved. But as an approver, you could come in, make adjustments, change things out, reject it, whatever you need to do. But now, not only is it when we do the initial AP entry, but now when we have the ability to, before we get to cut the checks, you have another stopping point to say, hey, yeah, I know I approved it. You can go ahead and enter it, or you might choose to not even do that. But now we have the say on whether things get printed out in our check runs. So again, a great new way to segregate duties, add approvals to places where they're needed. What's the next approval process? Let Dan know where are the areas that you see adding approvals would make a lot of sense to your company. So I leave that with you. This is obviously a big change to the screens out there. Again, note, if you leave it off, everything works exactly as it does today, but we enhanced it, adding the approvals and adding new functionalities to view those things to make it a little easier for you as well. All right, the next thing came around our order management area. So order management, obviously a very large module, can be used in numerous different ways. And there are lots of different people that are in there. There are the people that are doing the data entry for the sales order. There are the people that are managing the orders and going in and updating and making changes to things. There's the managers that are reviewing and so forth. And so when people come into order management, if you've been using this like most people for 10 plus years, there gets to be a lot of data into the system. So some people came back to us, said very simply, I don't want to see sales orders or shippers that have been canceled. Yep, I know that's great, that's really important, but once they get canceled, as a data entry person, they're out of my hair. I don't want to see them anymore. Or maybe Dan as manager says, well, no, I can see the canceled orders. There might be a reason I need to pop it open at a later time and take a look at it. Another one was, I only want to see the things in the sales order and shipper screens that are current, maybe the past year or two. I don't want to see something from 5-10 years ago. I might say that, but Dan might say, no, I need to be able to pull up any of them at any time. And so we wanted to be able to basically allow those same things to coexist in one area. And that's why we added these two new fields in this screen called the user default screen. Now I have to make a confession. I totally forgot about this screen until the developers started using it. But this screen, user defaults, has been out there forever. It allows you to set some default sites. You can see displaying bookings for and salespeople. You can set some information percentages for a specific user that's out there. What we build on top of it is that, great, this screen already exists. Let's just add some new fields to do exactly what these people need. So the first one is, if you turn on the first checkbox, you can exclude canceled orders. So no longer will you see any canceled orders. The second is the orders/shipper PV years. How many years do I want to look back? If it says 0, that's the default. It's going to show you everything. If you do 1, it's 1 year ago, it's 2 years ago, and it's basically saying from the date, the sales order date, show me things that's been inside those last 2 years. So you have that flexibility to turn it on for me, but maybe leave it off for Dan and so forth. So it gives you some great flexibility there. So answering a very simple need makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of data, and now we're able to address it with this new functionality. The next feature, there we go. Next feature is around migration. There are a number of you that are still with us on SL on premise. Some of you might have moved to the cloud. And then there are others here that are starting to look into moving to Dynamics SL Business Central. This last feature, which won't apply to you now, but if you decide that you are ready to move up to Business Central to get a true cloud solution, we added some functionality to Dynamics SL's database maintenance screens that turns on functionality that's needed to migrate. So it allows to turn on some functionality that'll make it easy to use the migration tools that would take you up to there. So those are the big things. Now, along with those things as well, and if you were to open up the Dynamics SL, if you see the fact sheet that's attached to here, we also address a lot of hot fixes. We have been very, very quick to address any feature requests, but also any hot fix requests that come up. So you'll see in the attached fact sheet, if you download the actual solution, let me kind of pull that up real quickly. If we download the actual solution and you scroll down to CU6, you're going to see something called the summary of changes document. So the summary of changes document will do that high level and talk about some of the features that I just talked about, but more importantly, it's going to tell you about all of the hot fixes that we've done. We're doing, 50, 60, 70 hot fixes per release. So if you've put a hot fix release in for SL 2018, more than likely, if we've gotten back to you, that's going to be addressed. So we think it's very important to continue to make that SL 2018 problem as rock solid as possible. So if you are having issues, please go to Microsoft, report them, because we are reviewing those items and continue to add them into the core product. All right, that kind of gives you an overview of what we've been working on, what we've done all the way through CU6. We are currently working on CU7 right now. As I said, we've been working on some hot fixes, but also we are getting ready, geared up for the changes that the government might be giving us and moving forward as well. So as we kind of round out here, you've seen me talk about these already inside the presentation. I just wanted to kind of bring it back. If you are not familiar with Power BI or Power Automate or Power Apps, definitely speak to Dan and his team about the features and functionalities of what they can bring to you. It really is great functionality to be able to review your information, see the details of what's going on inside of your system, and then be able to drill down and get to the details. Because we're very transactional based inside of SL, Power BI that takes us up to the next level where we can view what's going on. With our Power Apps, the idea behind here is what are those tasks that you need to do that you don't want people having to log into SL? I've talked to many people who've created apps for their sales teams so they don't have to keep on asking you about inventory or statuses of projects or status of different areas. Again, a Power App, simple to build, connects to your SL data securely, and allows you to view that information as needed. And then with our Power Automate, what are those things that you like to get notified about? I've showed a lot about automated emails that will allow you to do approvals. We've also included in here a series of Power Automate flows or emails that they're called flows. You can see we do everything from let me know when someone puts in a new customer or account to when is my project over budget, when there's my vendor over a certain balance or my customers over a balance. Let me know when those things happen, and we can automatically set them up with Power Automate to email you, let you know that it's happening so you can take action opposed to waiting and searching maybe at a later time. We're proactively telling you when something's happening in your system. And then these are just a few examples of those emails that can be generated. And last but not least, as far as our features, hopefully you are all very familiar with our web apps. We continue to work on web apps and work with our customers who need additional functionality to be remote. And that's the idea with web apps. The functionality that we provide you is focused on, if my apologize, my mouse is not listening to me. Here we go. Every month we are coming up with a release, whether it's hot fixes, those are new tweaks or enhancements that we do to the product. Those are always available. The things, if you're a project person, hopefully I don't need to explain because everything that you need to do in the project world is available on the web. For my non-project people on the phone, think about this. You can actually run probably 75% of your reports, whether you're on your phone or your tablet, wherever you can get access to Rendezvous SL. You can do quick queries, you can look up information, so keep that in mind as well. And last but not least, my roadmap. You're going to see kind of, hey, Jeff, this looks really familiar. The goal is to continue to release basically 2 releases every year. So we've just come out with CU6. CU7 definitely will be highly focused on our year-end updates as we find more about the government. But again, we're continuing to work on hot fixes and new requests from customers. So I do ask you that you reach out to Dan and your SIS team to talk to them about, hey, this is the thing that I'm running into. Can you provide this information to the Microsoft team? Dan has a direct line to me, so do you, to talk to me about any of the features that you have. So I really encourage you to take the time to reach out to Dan and let him know what are those little things that are going to make your life easier that we can add to the product